to DFG Talks. On this iteration, we have James Bailey, the head of business development from SubQuery and OnFinality. And we have James Wool, Digital Finance Group, DFG CEO and founder. Hello, James Bailey. Hello, James Wool.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Everyone.
Okay, so James Bailey, we're going to start with you. I'm going to have to address you with last names and all as to avoid confusion, right? So we're going to start with a bit of background, right? Can you please share with us and with the audience what is SubQuery, OnFinality, and what kind of value proposition you're bringing to the Polkadot ecosystem as a whole?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me on these DFG Talks. I'm really happy to be here. So I'm part of two organizations, OnFinality and SubQuery, and we'll kind of go through both. But both of them are really about supporting the Polkadot community, okay? So the thriving Polkadot community is going to need some key infrastructure and data services that allow them to build fast and complex decentralized applications. So for Web3 to succeed, which is what we all want, it really has to be faster than centralized networks for the end user, or as fast. So both OnFinality and SubQuery are here to kind of address that problem. The key difference between the two, OnFinality is an infrastructure provider versus SubQuery is a data provider. So that's the key difference in a nutshell. The value proposition behind OnFinality is to support growing teams with infrastructure and API services. So we realize as blockchain developers ourselves that development teams shouldn't need to spend time managing infrastructure or deploying nodes or testing nodes or creating test nets. It's time wasted, it's time not spent building things that are really valuable. So OnFinality provides kind of three key services, right? It provides dedicated nodes. So as a team, I can deploy a dedicated node with a single click to any cloud provider around the world, and we'll provision that node for you and run that node in a highly performant environment. That then allows development teams to upload their own images and their own node specs. So a blockchain team that are creating new versions of their test network can upload Docker images of their new node, and we can automatically deploy a whole heap of those and create a test network in minutes. You can deploy an entire test network, test whatever change you're doing, and then deconstruct that and go home for the evening, right? So it's about bringing kind of continuous integration testing to decentralized development teams. Akala uses our services to kind of help build out their networks. And then lastly, for OnFinality, we provide free API services. So we've got partnerships with many of the top protocols out there, and we provide free API nodes, the shared nodes that anyone around the world can sign up, get an API key, and interact with those nodes and make up to 500,000 requests a day, which is huge. So you can get started today and accessing Polkadot nodes without having to running infrastructure yourself, without having to create your own Polkadot node or Kusama node or whatever. So that's OnFinality, an infrastructure provider. SubQuery, again, is a data provider, and a key difference here. So SubQuery is born out of the idea that every blockchain project is going to need to kind of process and query data. And the way that data is stored in a decentralized system is terrible for querying, especially for complex decentralized applications. So SubQuery, in essence, makes towards decentralized data more accessible. Effectively, what we do is with 4 stages. We allow you to define a SubQuery project, which extracts data from the chain. It transforms that. It might filter it and transform it into a more performant view. It might aggregate or sum up or average values. And then it saves that in a database. And that allows you to then query that data using GraphQL and from your decentralized applications extremely quickly, extremely fast, extremely performantly. So it's about transforming that decentralized data into a more performant version, an index version that you can then better access and use in your decentralized applications. So we've got a open source SubQuery node service where you can define your own project. You can then deploy that yourselves and run it yourself. But again, no one wants to be running their own infrastructure, right? So we've recently delivered a new tool called SubQuery projects, which allow you to build your own project and then pass it off to us. So let us run and manage it for you. We'll do it for free. We'll put it up in our hosted managed service and run it on the most performant nodes we possibly can. We'll run it so that you don't have to worry about doing it. And you can access it using a GraphQL endpoint. And then lastly, all these different projects that have been built, we've built an explorer that allows you to kind of look through and see what other people are making. There's some really cool things that the community are building right now, some really cool use cases that they're building. And as that grows, it's going to be quite interesting to see how people are transforming data from Polkadot. Yeah, so that's SubQuery and OnFinality in a nutshell.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James, for this. Yeah, pretty simple but pretty clear, right?
Yeah.
So
that's the thing, right? We have to be better than centralized systems, and the only way we're going to do that is by transforming stuff and providing better services for everyone to build better applications, right? So we're all about helping other decentralized developers achieve their potential.
I understand. So now I'm going to switch to our other speaker, James Wall from DFG. James, can you mind sharing with us a bit of background of who DFG is, what you do within the market, please?
Sure. Happy to do that. So my name is James, hello everyone. And I started a company called DFG back in 2015. It's basically investment firm in the industry. So at that time we start with investment in the startups, including Circle, Brave, LedgerX, RSK, UnoCoin, and Repeal, BSO. It's all about because that's is 6 years ago, it's pretty early stage, so we just invest into different startups, mostly focused on exchange and the Bitcoin use cases. So I guess that's pretty early. So I guess glad to really support this kind of decent company. After the ICO bubble, so-called ICO bubble, that we really do a lot of research on the token side. We think this is something we want to invest. So we invest into a lot of protocols and also the ecosystem as well. I think the most exciting one and the one I feel like the most strategic in our company's investment is Polkadot. Because basically we get in from 2018 and keep buying it, and right now we hold like a decent amount of that. And we are unlike other VCs or other investors, which is probably doing allocated capital here and there, but we are pretty much focused on Polkadot right now, because we think this is really something could be huge in the future, and the fundamental logic we really understand the version and really kind of like the version. So that's why we are super bullish on that one. Right now we are pretty much focused on that. Because of this kind of vision, we really started an ecosystem fund back to more than a year ago, and really invest into top tier and really promising kind of like Polkadot ecosystem project, including in China I would say including Akala, Bifrost, Darwin, Litten Tree, Crust, and all these kind of first bunch of like Polkadot project. Overseas, like including Hydra DX, Refinance, Title Finance, Infinity recently, Use Tech, and a few others, like of course including SubQuery as well. So I guess total kind of project we invest in the Polkadot ecosystem is close to 40. So I guess this is still a pretty early stage ecosystem. There's a lot of potential for every sector to grow. So we try to be as diversified as possible and not just focus on one sector. Let's say DeFi, I just focus on color, not that case. But we are pretty much focused on every sector. And I think not only we are bullish on the the end user application like DeFi, NFT, or these kind of stuff, which are pretty popular, which are good. We will definitely do that. But also we care a lot about the infrastructure, which I believe that once you have certain kind of like a solid infrastructure, then every application will operate more smoothly. Then we'll kind of eventually get a lot of users to use the platform. So that's why we are super excited about EVM, about for example, like kind of create this service like this, and this is also something we're super excited about. Yeah, so that's basically the recent update and also the history of the company.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James Bailey. I'm going to come back to you. You were making a clear distinction about what it is, how SubQuery, let's say, collects data, right, or processes data, and how this has become. You are trying to, let's say, push the boundaries of what the industries around the world, because of nowadays we have dozens of industries, if not all industries, collecting data and pushing to use this data in their advantage. So I wanted to have a bit of a sense, or share a sense with the community, with the audience, of what you saw in traditional data processing, the one that we've been using since, let's say, the technological or even before, but what you saw, let's say, as a weakness or of something that SubQuery can improve, and how you're working at it.
Yeah, well, I guess there's two parts to that question, right? With the traditional data processing model, everything's centralized. So all your data goes to some big content aggregator around the world, into the depths of their engine, and you don't know where that data is going or how it's being used, right? Like everyone talks about these days with Facebook, you're not the customer, you are the product. So in general, a shift towards decentralized systems is going to be better for consumers overall, because of that lack of this oligarch controlling your data and making assessments of you as a person from your data, which is dangerous. And we've seen that, and I think everyone around the world is kind of coming around to that, right? So there's a massive shift around the world to decentralize things and to reduce the impacts these huge data aggregators. From a decentralized point of view, like there's huge weaknesses in the way that data is done in a decentralized point of view that SubQuery is here to solve. The core weakness of blockchain data, with a blockchain, imagine pages of data all linked to the next, and answering simple questions like, what's the total revenue I've made from staking since the start of time, is notoriously difficult, because you have to go through every single block in that chain to kind of count it all up. So that's what SubQuery is all about, right? We will do that on the fly, or not on the fly, sorry, continuously in the background, so that data is more readily available for you over time. And that's fundamentally what SubQuery does. The key difference for us, though, versus some of the other people that will provide APIs to certain data types, is we give you the freedom, right? There's a lack of freedom from some of our other competitors, where they'll give you a set of APIs, and they'll index some data from Polkadot or from many other chains, but you don't have the freedom to change that data or tweak it or collect something else. You as a decentralized app developer need data in a specific format for your app, right? SubQuery is an open source tool that allows you to have the freedom to define how that data is collected from that chain, how it is transformed, how it is stored, so it can be served to your decentralized application in a way that will set apart your application from the competitors. That's why we're focusing on documentation, getting started guides, and even walkthrough videos to make sure that any developer can transform the data exactly how they want. They have the freedom to get that data in a way that works for them, and in a way that achieves their own goals.
I understand. Yeah, there's a difference between having data on one hand, and then being able to use it in a, let's say, in a meaningful way, right? As you said, blockchain, you can see all that data, but not necessarily can you have it organized enough for it to be beneficial for an individual institution.
Absolutely. There's a principle, I can't remember who's come up with it, since the start of the internet age, or start of the computing age, where basically if something isn't returned in 100 milliseconds, it's really bad, right? Users lose interest in a web page. Ideally, everything that can be should be returned in less than 100 milliseconds. People expect real-time stuff. People expect that when I click a button to get something, it's returned back to me and quick. Like that's the expectation that consumers have these days. And saying that's going to take all day for us to run through the network to calculate X is that's not going to fly. That's not going to allow us to display some of these centralized data oligarchs.
I understand. And you were referring to let's say Facebook, right? The centralized service providers who are actually mining this data from all users. Therefore, users are not really the product, right? So they are being used to that. So how do you plan to let's say to counteract that? How obviously through a decentralized way, as you were saying, but can you please share a bit more?
So SubQuery isn't necessarily going to help counteract. We're not going to specifically go out there and counteract it. What we're going to do is give the tools to other projects out there to build their new thing. So we're allowing other projects that are specifically going out there to displace these centralized providers the tools that they need to perform at that level. So we're not trying to be a service provider that does that. We're not going to be a social network, or we're not going to be a banking system or stuff. We're going to provide the data in a way that allows that banking system to be better than the centralized competitor.
I understand. I see. So I'm going to come back to James Wall. James, would you mind, from an investment perspective, right? We've heard James Bailey explain how SubQuery and OnFinality work, what they are and what they bring. From an investment perspective, would you mind sharing with us what you saw in a service provider, let's say of this type, right, as an attractive investment? So purely on the investment side.
Sure. I think first of all, our criteria or philosophy for the investment, the first is really about the team. I guess unless it's a strong team and pretty solid, with a pretty solid vision. Otherwise, I don't think it makes sense for you to kind of doing the investment. Because maybe it will generate great returns in the bond market for you, but it doesn't deserve you to really put a lot of capital into it and really doing a lot of close post investment management on top of that. I think this is really a long-term strategic project for us. I guess the first is really I pretty admire and I like the team, like James and like Sam, the founder, and other people. I think I talked to them and I really like the team, and this is pretty somehow like a solid fundamental things for the success of the project in the future. This is the first. The second, I will say why I'm pretty bullish on this is about because in the Polkadot ecosystem, at least I don't see any kind of competitors on this sector. Because basically, I guess our strategy is trying to be diversified and really invest in the top three, probably the number one project in each sector. And SubQuery, I think it's definitely the number one kind of project on its own sector. So this is the reason why we think this is it's all about it's both about you're getting pretty early in the early stage, then you are there and people will use it, and also you have such a decent and solid product and people will use it, right? So I guess combination of these two reasons, I think it's probably a very easy decision to make the investment. And And the third, I think I don't need to expand too much because already, James expand a little bit in detail about why, we need a decentralized kind of like a data service. I think this is already pretty clear. Everyone can understand it. I fully, believe in innovation as well. So I don't need to expand that. So that's the third, reasons why I'm super bullish on the project. So a combination of all of these, I think making such an investment decision is not a difficult task for me. Thanks.
Thank you, James. James Bailey, I'm going to come back to you, and I would like to know how you can kind of illustrate, right, this combination of services between data and infrastructure, and how they, let's say, how they work together, how a developer or a team who is bringing a new, let's say, a new concept to the blockchain or to the whole industry, how we can see how these gears, let's say, work together and encompass what they do.
Yeah. So SubQuery and OnFinality are intertwined. They're built by the same team. We've been working together for many years, and we have the expertise in running high performance, scalable infrastructure at industry leading standards. But the key part is the different services that they offer. They're symbiotic, right? They work together for the benefit of both. For example, API services allow someone to start developing immediately. Dedicated nodes allow you to manage a few things by yourself immediately. The automated infrastructure is some really important tools for development teams to actually test networks before they go live. There's a whole suite of tools of OnFinality that are specifically built to help both development teams and the hobbyist or hacker in their house in lockdown right now get started on building on Substrate or Polkadot. But then you look at SubQuery, and SubQuery requires OnFinality in a way, right? To index the chain's data, you need access to that data, right? And so there's no better way than to use an API service to retrieve access to that data, right? So SubQuery, for a lot of the SubQuery projects on our managed infrastructure, it will query our OnFinality API service. So we're relying on the same service that we're running to provide the data that go into those queries, and it gets indexed and transformed and then served as queries to the user, right? So they're entirely symbiotic. SubQuery needs OnFinality. Of course, you can make SubQuery if you own node service, but you have to run your own node service. So again, symbiotic. And that's a key point, right? OnFinality and SubQuery, our team with expertise in managed infrastructure hosting. We've done it for years, and we have a track record that we can deliver complex infrastructure projects and host them for production use, and we're dedicated to that, right? So we're sending a tool that we can provide the fastest, most performant API service or GraphQL service out there.
Great, yeah, I understand. So when it comes to what you're, let's say, how will you drive adoption in a basic sense? So what are your plans, right, to push, let's say, the market into coming to use either OnFinality for the infrastructure services or SubQuery for the data query services, right? What are your plans? What kind of roadmap are we looking at?
Yeah, so I guess it's a good point to make in this, that we're dedicated to Polkadot. We're committed to the Polkadot network. We saw its potential ages ago, and it felt natural for us to focus ourselves on that. The core premise is to create a thriving community, and that community is going to need these services to help build them better decentralized applications. The unique architecture of Polkadot means that we can focus on Polkadot, but also with minimal change, support hundreds of parachains in the future. So that's the interoperability is really important to us. So putting this effort now, we can support all these different use cases in the future. So that's why Polkadot is so captivating for us. We're providing free services now to help foster and incubate this community. Without a thriving Polkadot community, our service will be of little use, right? So by helping teams get started and get building and get delivering product to real consumers out there, that's our main goal right now. Our services are symbolic, but as we hope that teams understand and start to what we provide and how we provide it, and they understand the benefits that it provides, and they start to trust us that we can provide both scalable and performance solutions, we'll hopefully see more teams come on board. And we're seeing that right now, right? So like we've just recently launched a projects page, and we've seen our second real customer use case come on. So we've had Akala using SubQuery, and now we have Bifrost. Bifrost just launched a new app, and they're using or querying data from SubQuery in their app. So we're seeing real world use cases using our platform right now, and it's still very early days. Our roadmap right now is really busy, right? So because we're a core service these customers of ours or these partners of ours, we're going to invest hugely in reliability and scalability, right? Teams are going to rely on us to always be available, always be working, and always be performing at the best. It shows like last quarter, from January to the end of March 2021, we provided almost 1 billion requests to Polkadot and Kusama nodes. So at a peak of like 40 million requests a day to our API service. In a single day, 40 million requests. It's just insane, right? But we have to perform at that level. So we're investing a massive amounts in making sure that we can scale to a daily rate of 100 million requests or 500 million requests or 1 billion requests a day. And you'll see a lot of that coming out. And then long term, we're working on a tokenization strategy as we move towards deploying our own parent chain. It's still very early days, and we have a heap of ideas that we're kind of kicking around and coming up for good story. But and I can't wait to talk to you more about this, but it's still too early to kind of really talk about this much further. But yeah, we've got a huge roadmap, and it really comes on to building services that other teams will see the value of and come on board because it makes sense. It's a no-brainer.
Indeed,
Our success is derived on the success of the Polkadot ecosystem. We are married to it. Of
course, and you're let's say you're developing a useful set of tools that will obviously assist in the growth and development of Polkadot, which is in its own way something that is pushing boundaries of what we have seen for the last 5 years at the least when it comes to this paradigm of smart contracts, DApps, let's say the exemplification of value and how we see value on chain, right? So yeah, I believe that it's very promising. And what you were saying about the transactions and the not transactions, but the requests, is pretty impressive.
It's huge. It's we looked at the data and we're like, whoa, what? We didn't quite expect that. Yeah, it's just accelerating. But it just means that we're just constantly focusing on, always being alive and always being the most performant solution, right? It's key to us. And we're going to be fundamentally trusted by companies or by projects to provide production data. So we have to be the best.
Yes, definitely. Having partnerships as the ones that you have now, Akala, Bifrost, Darwinium, Plasm. I mean, those are all trendsetters and amazing in their own way, and having them all connected through SubQuery and through OnFinality is definitely going to be an amazing match. Thank you, James. James, well, I'd like to finish up kind of asking you, James, well, what your thoughts are on this DFG SubQuery partnership, and what you expect.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alex. I think for our side, it's pretty clear that we're going to be, first of all, be invested. We got to keep supporting the project. I guess in there a couple of like perspective, as you can see a lot of our portfolio project are their customers for SubQuery. I think there will be more. There's like at least like 100 pair, right? And there could be like a use cases application in the future built on top of the pair, right? So you got like a Plasma, Edgeware, Moving, others. They all have their own ecosystem. There will be like dozens of projects built on top of that. So there will be like thousands of projects building on the Polkadot ecosystem. So we are investing to a lot of projects. So we definitely want to create a synergy between different kind of projects. So I guess in the future, what we can work with and cooperate with SubQuery is like we're gonna help the SubQuery to grow as like we can introduce the project we think which probably makes sense to use as SubQuery service, right? And also it would definitely benefit our the other portfolio company as well. So I guess this is something we should do, and not only just being invested and put capital into it, but also really help the portfolio project create a synergy together. This is something we can think pretty important. The other things that I can mention a little bit is about the pair chain auction. I think really the Polkadot ecosystem is getting started when the pair chain auction started, and I guess sooner or later, I mean, whatever the time is, like June or whatever, I think it will start probably pretty soon. So I guess what we can do is we allocate a certain amount of that, and that is reserved for using to support a different project to become the pair chain. I think this is something we're going to support for our portfolio project. So this is another way that I think will be pretty strategic for the relationship between the project we invest and the DFG. So I think these aspects I think are pretty important in our firm. So which is probably more important than just putting the capital. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. So this is going to be it for today. DFG Talks featuring SubQuery and OnFinality with James Bailey, the head of business development, and James Wall, DFG founder and CEO. If any of you would like to have a last word to the audience and say goodbye.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. We're really appreciative of the support that DFG provides us. And if anyone in the audience wants to talk to us, just hop on our Discord or Telegram or reach out via email. You can find all the details on our website.
James Wall.
Yeah, thanks, this is James, and happy to talk to you again. And SubQuery is a really decent project. You please follow them closely if you want to know better about them. And I think this is definitely something, for our portfolio company, this is something that will definitely worth a look and see whether you want to cooperate them or use their service. Thanks.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you all those who have been here as an audience to watch this extraordinary interview with both James, and we will see you again soon. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Alex. Bye-bye.